We do.
Please note that the in-person meeting will not be suspended or terminated if technological problems interrupt the remote connection. Roll call attendance. Eric Kaplan.
Mark Opozo, board member.
Karen George, Board of Health member.
Dave Sargent, advisor to the review subcommittee.
Chelsea Goldstein Walsh, Regional Prevention Director.
Cody Smith, city sanitarian.
There's a bunch of people missing.
Yeah, there's some people missing. Dominique will be here in a little bit. She's at project finance. Yeah. And then we may have some people joining us as the meeting continues.
Okay. Public oral communication for non-agenda items, 3 minutes per person. Is there anybody on Zoom?
There is anyone on Zoom have any non-related agenda questions? Please raise your hand and I can give you permission to talk. Nobody.
Okay. Next agenda item is approval of the October 16th Board of Health meeting minutes. I was in Portugal, so I can't vote on it, but there's only 2 of us. And we should
Yeah.
to the next meeting. I think you're up next.
If you want to just call the agenda item, then I can help you with that.
Agenda item number 5, 22 Forest Street, Forest Avenue, review of water well information and an issuance of a water well certificate.
Yeah, so 22 Forest Ave is a new address. Forest Ave is right at the end of Haskell Reservoir. They have a septic system that they just installed and a water well. Part of our regulations is the board has to approve a water well certificate. Their initial, pull up their readings. Their initial well testing showed high sodium, high manganese, and high turbidity above the state recommended levels. They went back and retested after their filtration system was in. Everything's below the recommended limits for the state. And so I recommend that we issue the water well certificate.
I know him. I thought he died.
That's nice.
Love him, Dave.
That's cute.
I'm just doing
I move that we approve the recommended water well at 22 Forest Avenue.
I second that.
Eric, yes.
Marco, yes.
Aaron, yes.
Okay, it's approved.
Yes.
If you want to call number 6.
359 Western Avenue relief requests. Designer Dan Johnson, subsurface sewage disposal system.
Give me just a second and I'll share the screen. So there's no variances with this application. So the designer is not here. It's just relief requests. Share. So 359 Western Ave is right on the right if you were to turn onto Hesperus when you're headed out towards Ravenswood Park. It's an existing building, has a failed system right along the street here.
Cody, can you make it a little bigger?
I certainly can. So failed system down in the parking area has basically a open cesspool that then feeds to another overfill cesspool. The backyard is filled with a lot of ledge, and so it's a difficult site. Construction of the system as it's designed is actually going to be quite difficult, but not impossible. So it's a advanced treatment system, Presby system, so it relies on the soil absorption system to do the treatment, opposed to a secondary treatment unit. It's outside all the resource areas, in which case is generally where I like to see Presby systems installed. So the designer has asked for two relief, is asked for a relief to seasonal high groundwater, so a 2 foot reduction. The 2 foot reduction to groundwater means that the backyard basically won't have such a high mounted system. Allows the system to kind of blend into the slope a little bit better and be less of an eyesore. And it's approved for that 2 foot reduction to groundwater. Also asking for some relief with not having 4 feet of naturally occurring soil. So the site has 30 inches at one side to 25 on the other. So, but once again, Presby is approved through the state for that reduction as well. So I don't see any reason not to necessarily approve it. I went through proper design flow. Like I said, it's outside of our resource areas. I think it meets maximum feasible compliance for this lot. You could do an STU with a pressure distribution system that would probably provide maybe slightly better treatment. But that would be a matter of opinion. The state kind of says that they both work the same. So I'm happy with the design the way it is. We did a walkthrough of the facility to make sure that it is a 3 bedroom house. It's an old carriage house, so it's been that way for a long time.
And this is a big improvement over what is there.
Yeah, yep. So yep, is a big improvement on what's there. So so my recommendation is to approve with the two reliefs. So I mean, technically you're not granting a variance here, but you are giving the authority basically to approve the reliefs because you guys wanted to see, alternative design standards for you.
I move that we approve the relief for 359 Western Avenue.
I will second that.
Does anyone have any questions?
I was just gonna see if Dave had any other.
Yeah, therefore to define soil there at all. And I know in your narrative, you said why this system failed. And I hope that you continue doing that because that's lets us know, how we could maybe better design systems. I'm just wondering if you have any concerns over the swale isn't back. If that got removed, if drainage would be going to the new septic system, and if there should be a condition that swale still stays there to prevent drainage from going on to the system. I'm interested in your thoughts.
I mean, the drainage swale now kind of basically filters water from Upper Ravenswood there and so it's right now it catches water and diverts it away from the septic system.
Right.
It diverts it basically to the other side of the property where it feeds the pipe that goes underneath the house. That then feeds an isolated catch basin on the other side of the street. I mean, I think the drainage swale should kind of stay where it is. It's an up gradient of the septic system. So in the event that there was an overtopping or some type of failure with the septic system, the drainage swale wouldn't necessarily intercept any of that and feed it to another location.
What I was concerned about is if they removed the drainage swale.
Oh, gotcha. We could make, I think we could make it a condition that the drainage swale stays in place, but I think that the drainage swale is there because the house would flood otherwise.
Right. And I wouldn't want the septic system flood.
Right. So, I mean, I think that if the board wants to add that recommendation, I can have the designer add a note to the plan saying that the drainage swale should, be maintained and stay there so that no erosion comes to the septic system.
Thank you.
Yeah, that to the.
That's up to you as the board members, but
That's fair.
So do we want to approve the two alternate design standards with the condition that they keep the existing draining soil where it is?
Yes.
okay. I'll make a note. I'll have the designer make a note on the plan.
So we should
Go
go.
on their plan approval as well.
I'll make a motion to accept the design standard with the condition of the drainage soil. Yes, being up there.
Eric. Marco, yes.
Aaron, yes.
Okay, yeah, yep, thank you for waiting for me to finish my notes.
Next, it's 19 Two Penny Lane. Variance request, designer John Judd, Eagle Consultants.
Well, good evening.
Done.
For the record, John Judd, engineer with Gateway Consultants, and Deb Ellison is here as legal counsel for the applicant, just to answer any questions that might come up legally. This is a proposal. Sorry, Cody's bringing it up. Thank you, Cody. This is a proposal for a 3-bedroom septic system on a 3-acre parcel, vacant parcel out at 2 Penny Lane. This is considered 100% coastal dune, as all the lots are, everything down in Wingershee. We have done testing with Cody on this proposal. We have very good soils out here. We did have some ledge exposed in certain areas, but we're confident that the proposed system that's shown is outside of any ledge areas. We do have the requisite soil depths, and we're not looking for any waivers from the Title V. The only waiver that we just can't avoid is the coastal dune delineation for everything out on Wingershee. Anything that's been built out there is in a coastal dune. But we have met all the setbacks otherwise, and we're not looking for any waivers for the system within the Title V parameters, just the local regulations. We are using advanced treatment because of the sensitivity out here, which we always do out in the Wingershee area. And that's essentially it. The variance request is to situate leaching facility within a coastal dune, as we've had for tens of every property down there. We've done the same, very similar situation over the years, and this lot has been vacant, and it's been owned, paying taxes as a buildable parcel for over 30 years. And it's a brief description. Deb and I are here. I'm not sure if she wants to add anything to that legally, but I'm sure there's going to be some questions. If not, can answer any questions you might have.
With regard to the legal aspects of it, I'm sure you understand that the purpose of Title V is to protect the public health, safety, and welfare. It's not to determine that lots are not developable. And so its purpose under the regs for requiring a variance makes it clear that this development can happen, or certain developments can happen, as long as you meet certain conditions. And the variance standard is high, as we know. The applicant has to show that it can achieve the level of public health and environmental protection that is required, or at least equivalent to what is required under Title V. Mr. Judd is well respected. He's been before this board many times, and he has designed a system that can do this. The applicant must show that the regs are also manifestly unjust. And in this particular case, you also need to look at all of the relevant facts and circumstances. If the variance isn't allowed, this applicant will not be able to construct a habitable dwelling on this lot, nor will he be able to construct a garage or any other building, and would not be able to construct a parking lot. So essentially, there would be absolutely no use of this lot. And although financial hardship can't be a sole justification, it's certainly something that you must consider. And as Mr. Judd said, for almost 30 years, this has been assessed as a buildable lot. And overnight, if the variance isn't granted, it would be non-buildable. And so I would suggest to you that that in and of itself is manifestly unjust. And just because you can walk on the property, put a bench on the property, that doesn't mean you haven't taken away substantially all of its beneficial use. Those uses are not equivalent to being able to build on the property and live on the property. And so you have before you a septic system that's been designed to meet Title V, and you have a property that's currently buildable that would be rendered completely unbuildable. And I'd suggest to you that it does meet the variance standards and request that the variance be granted.
Cody, can I comment?
You got that, Doc. Let me fill in on my side, and then, yeah.
Please,
Yeah. So, I mean, I reviewed the application. Like John said, he does propose having an advanced treatment in here. It is a nitrogen reducing technology that's required under our new regulations to have that nitrogen reducing technology because he's that close to the ACEC buffer. So he's outside the 200-foot buffer, but he's between the 200 and 300-foot buffer. We worked long and hard at these regulations that just got passed in April. The applicant did have, time before this to potentially build this lot when the regulations were different and the way that we enforce manifestly unjust may have been different. Just because we've done it differently in the past, we redid our regulations to make sure that, we believed in protecting these areas that we don't want septic effluent going into, or that could be affected by septic effluent. So this area is an environmentally sensitive area. It's one of the last, it's part of the Great Marsh. It's outside that ACEC buffer, but that area is the state's kind of recognized it as a special natural resource. Being in a coastal dune sediments don't do a great job at treatment. They're very permeable sands, not a lot of surface area. Water tends to run through them very fast. The advanced treatment system makes up for a lot of it, but you still need a leaching field to do some of the polishing. It's in the coastal dune, our regulations. We've had 3 other applicants that have come before us, in 2 of which were in the coastal dune that we didn't allow for new construction. This site is also in the coastal dune. It wouldn't necessarily be fair to those applicants to approve this. Not that that's justification alone, because every situation is unique, but I think, we redid those regulations to make sure that we felt good when we made these decisions on a lot like this. It's my understanding that, this lot, although in a trust, is also owned by the same neighboring property, 21. And so they have, use of a beach house per se, and they could use this lot potentially for a tennis court or, some other feature like that could add to their property potentially. Adding a septic system to this area will forever kind of change that dynamic. And we'll have a lot of, we've had some coastal dune variances that we haven't granted. And I think that in this case, they still have use of this property. Although it's not the same use as if you had a dwelling, it is use of the property. So, if we believe in our regulations, then we should kind of stick to, making sure applicants make that definition of manifestly unjust. If we don't believe in our regulations, then we should go back and revisit that at another time potentially. But I don't believe they've made the definition of manifestly unjust. Even if they can't build anything here, you could still pull in and park a car and walk and enjoy that amazing space. How fortunate are they to have a beautiful coastal dune environment that they can enjoy, and they have private beach access. So there is other uses of this property. They can't necessarily put a garage on it for zoning, or there might be zoning things that I'm not aware of. But you could certainly, there's nothing stopping anyone from parking a car and enjoying that space that's their space. That has access to a private beach and what is really a unique, pristine secondary dune environment.
And Cody, us not allowing a septic system doesn't mean that they can't put a garage on. That's not on our jurisdiction. That would be on building jurisdiction.
No, you can't do that.
You can't do what?
You can't put it in like it's an accessory use to a residential use.
And the tennis court.
You can't do anything. You can put a bench here. So it's essentially a taking. I'll let Deb, explain that legally. Meets all the standards, meets all Title V. We've had every property on Wingersheet Beach has been approved. It's all coastal dune. This is actually further away from the ACEC. We had probably, and Dave, I know you've opined on this before, just because it was allowed in the past, doesn't mean, but this has been going on for 50 years. All those houses, most of them don't have the treatment that this has. Most recently, 2 years ago, 77, you put an 8-bedroom system right in the coastal dune. You know, so everything's changing here. Everyone has their philosophical beliefs, but you have to look at the science, and that the treatment here, it's proven, and it's approved by the state, that it provides equal and adequate protection. So it's surprising to me that there would be any pushback on this, only because we've done it so many times, including the gentleman to my right. His house is right on the marsh. I mean, so all of a sudden we're changing standards here, and it's, in my opinion, a legal taking.
So we reached out to our legal counsel on this, and the guidance to us and to the board was that we should stick to our jurisdiction and our regulations. And if there's an issue of legal taking, then the applicant could take it up with the city. But it's not for us to consider.
Right, but we've also submitted a very thorough manifest and just argument. It's not even an argument, it's a statement, it's a fact that this has been separate use. I know Cody has his thoughts on separate, this is separate owner. He has a family, separate owner, separate trust. So different two
Legal
different things.
owner, but not separate person, correct?
No, it's
No,
a
just-
separate person. So the trustee of the trust is one of the people who owns the other property, but they're not the owner. There are beneficial interests there. So they're two separate legal entities.
Yes.
And I think the problem, it's your job to determine whether a variance should be granted. And whether there's a legal taking or not, that would be something that would be appealed. You're absolutely right. But it's still for you to decide, is this variance just? And is it allowed under your regulations? There wouldn't be a process for a variance if it wasn't allowed. The interpretation that I heard Cody say was that it's never going to be allowed. It will never be enough. There will always be some use if you can just walk on it. And so that's where you get to the point where there's no longer any sort of discretion or discussion about whether a variance should be applied. And this is a perfect situation for it, because you are taking away all beneficial use. And to say that it's the same thing to be able to walk on a property or stand on a property is, as we all know, it's not the same as being able to build a house. And so again, I would ask you to grant the variance. I think it meets the standards. Your purpose under the regulations is to protect the environment, to protect the public health, and this does it. We haven't heard anything to say that it doesn't. So that's our position, and I hope you find it persuasive.
I might say that the regulations really say that to be manifestly unjust, you can't consider the single most beneficial use. And the single most beneficial use is great, a building, a domicile and stuff like that. So that essentially is what's happening. And this regulation has been on the books since the wastewater management plan of 2000. It just hasn't been enforced evenly, much as land subject to coastal storm flowage hasn't been. But it was brought to our attention that we weren't enforcing wetland regs and Board of Health regs uniformly as we should have been in the past. And so that's why the Board of Health spent an agonizing year plus redoing the regulations so that it was exact. If this would be approved, I think it would be contrary to the newly written regs on talking about manifestly unjust. And if the board wants to make an exception to local regs, we should go back, to looking at our regs and maybe making that exception on local setbacks that don't comply, that are a little bit more stringent than Title V. But the way it's written right now, we'd be going against our local regs. And I do have a great deal of sympathy, for the property owners out there. And I agree with John that this recently, just become an issue, as has land subject to coastal storm flowage. That was never, even regulated in the past as it is now. So I feel like, even though I sympathize with people, I still think that they do have some use. They just don't have the most beneficial use, of the property that they could have.
Do you have a question about the ability of this system to treat properly?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I think that with all due respect, it isn't only a matter of saying that they can't build a habitable house. They can't build any. They can't put a garage up, and it doesn't matter whether that's zoning or not, they can't do it. So those are also regulations of the city, and for 30 years, the city has assessed this as a buildable lot and collected the taxes on it.
So I just want to be clear, look, if we say no to a septic system, you therefore can't put any structure on that land? Is that a yes or no?
That's an absolute no. It's not
You
allowed
cannot.
legally. It's a garage and is an accessory use in a residential. This is residentially zoned. If this was commercially zoned, we could put a garage up. This is resident. So a garage is an accessory use to a resident. So with no septic system, no house, no garage.
Right. And you're also saying that these individuals, trust manager versus owner of the next property, zero blood relation, not related.
That has nothing to do with it.
Well, does it?
They're
It
separate
doesn't.
owners.
Are they family?
This separate owner is separate owner.
Right, is it family? Are they
It doesn't
immediate
matter.
family?
That's irrelevant. That's not a question for you.
Well, it's a question because if they already have material use of the beach house
Wait,
and
That's
this
a
land has
different
been
property.
there.
That's a different.
Harmony,
property.
you gotta stay focused on the
I'm very
facts.
focused on it, John. I'm asking the question.
No.
I just
don't
asked the
think you
question, are they,
The
first
trust
family?
is a separate legal entity, and one of the trustees is an owner of the beach house.
And they are a
But-
family?
It's the same person, but he's a trustee. He's not a beneficiary as far as I'm aware. But they're two separate properties.
But they're
And
the same
so
person?
It's not, there's nothing in the regulations that say if you own the property next door, then you automatically have.
No, you're making the
beneficial
point
use.
that it's manifestly unjust because
Yes.
they have no material use of that
Exactly.
property. But they have the whole property next door.
That's not them. I mean, and it's a different legal entity, first of all. And secondly, there's nothing in your regulations that say that if you own two properties, one is vacant and one you have a house on, that it's not manifestly unjust because you can now use that other property to just walk on. There's nothing in your regulations that tie the two together. So to try and tie the two together does not make any sense legally, and it's not relevant for the Board of Health.
Board, I think there's a gentleman that wants to make a comment.
Yeah. It's good comments to make. Did you do any work on this, Cody?
I was out there digging the test pits, yes.
Have you notified
Sorry, who is this?
her fault? You did work for me.
Okay, you gotta put in the record,
I
sir.
understand. The reality is, as
Are you in a butter?
her fault. I'm 22 Penny Lane on the.
He's in a butter.
Okay, okay.
I'm right next to it. Johnny's done work for me 20 years ago. We had a covenant. The attorney might want to look at the covenants if it's still in an act. We've had covenants for years there. It's a consortium was put together by 10 people. And I've owned the property for 40 years. It's extremely delicate. It's right up against Greenbelt. If you ever looked at this property design that Johnny designed here, you could probably put a septic in there, whether it's legal or not. The question is a very narrow lot. We did not know out there that this was subdivision. We cease and desist on all building. We've always said that. And this snuck up on us as much as anybody else. We didn't know there was a 19. I don't know whether that was registered 17. I talked to Chris LaPointe, who's president of Greenbelt, who I know, very concerned about this. Also the access and usage of the dunes, which we're getting a lot of people out there that are walking up to the dunes. Wherever you put this house, I don't know where it is. I saw your pit. I saw your dug. The question is, the access to that will have to be through, I always thought it was a Mary family, which financially, I think they're doctors. I don't even know whether they're alive today. Maybe the attorney knows that. I don't know who owns that property. I thought I made the assumption it was the son, daughter, whatever of the family. The question is, can you build there? I think the regulations that they've been updated for years, this has been a very much of a sticking point. And now it's gotten tougher and tougher and tougher and tougher. And I totally discourage the building of this lot. I really do. For the usage, the parking would have to be in the driveway, which is the main driveway of the place. I don't know. It goes from Essex River all the way to Farm Creek. It's very narrow. It's, to me, it's a money and land grab. Is it qualified? I've talked to the building inspector and the conservation person in town, and they said they'll never get a permit to build. Oh, John, you might laugh, buddy, but that's the way it is. All right. I'm a taxpayer for 40 years. John, a matter of fact, built up by a winter sheik as well, so he's one of our neighbors. That's what I have to say. I know there's a lot of work that's been put in it and stuff like that, but I think there's going to be a lot of controversy coming about it from some of the boards.
So a couple issues, this lot been in existence since 1998, and put in separate ownership at that point in time. And with regard to any private covenants, those are certainly things that are outside of the Board of Health's ambit. And obviously this is a budding property owner that has their own self-interest. So I'd ask you to just look at that for credibility purposes.
Self-interest. I think the whole association is self-interest. And it's very tight. Or this kind of suck up on us.
1998.
Or price.
I appreciate what Dave is saying in the comments that are being made, but I guess the part that I don't feel comfortable coming to any sort of decision on myself at this point is the fact that the city has, in theory, at least taxed them that it is buildable, and for us to then make a decision that it would not be in terms of how they're using it. I feel like I would want to hear more from like Suzanne or someone at the city specifically about it, because I just don't want to make a decision. There, it seems like there's a lot going on with this property. And I appreciate like the work Cody does and understand like the regulations that we have. But I think my concern is about the fact that like the manifestly unjust piece of, if we say there is nothing that can be put here, I think for me, having more feedback, like I appreciate what was shared, but like from the city specifically on their view and like how it would be treated moving forward for like the parcel of land, if it's decided that like this is against our regulations, it doesn't fit there, and then the resulting of that decision of how the city then treats it, I think I would just appreciate more clarity on, because I'm having a hard time kind of going through some of that like decision making myself right now. But I don't know what you guys think.
I agree. 30 years of taxes is a long time.
20,000 a year.
So I don't know if anyone knows this, but are the taxes that are paid yearly on the property, are they different if it's a buildable lot versus a just
Yes,
Absolutely.
so I checked with this.
substantially different?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It'd be
So I checked
negligible
with
if it's not.
the city assessors, and yeah, so there is a difference between a buildable lot and an unbuildable lot as far as taxes. When something's designated as a buildable lot, it was done so at the subdivision of this property before, soil testing had potentially been done. And so the assessors don't necessarily look at like whether or not you put a septic system there or not. It's that when there was a subdivision, it met the requirements for the lot sizes. So it made the lot requirement sizes like it's like not a non-conforming lot is what it sounded like. And so when it was, I think it's 1994, I believe, is when it was subdivided out, and I'm not 100% on that, but so when they did that, that's when it changed into a buildable lot. So when I talked to the city assessors, he said, oh, in 1994, this was then done as a buildable lot, basically. And so, but he said that, that's based off of the dimensions of the property and that it was subdivided out that way. That doesn't mean that it meets the requirements of a septic system. So it almost turns into like you know, if you purchase the property, you want to make sure you can put a septic system there. Or you could put a well there, or water supply could be there. There's other considerations you could have. I mean, for our purpose of our board, you know, the person did pay taxes on a buildable lot, assuming that a system could go in there, but no soil testing had ever necessarily even been done on that lot to prove that. So you could put a system in.
Right, but it was done way before that was even something that was capable of being done, right?
Right.
So I think
Well,
that's the argument, right?
I mean, you could have done, so the Title V regs came in 1995. So,
Totally
yeah,
understand, and I understand the regulations, however, I guess we have to look at it from someone else's perspective too, that if you're an owner that's paying as a buildable lot under the impression that it was subdivided that way, and the city's taking your money at $20,000 a year,
right.
and then you get to a point where you wanna build on it, and then they say, well, sorry, you can't do that. We have two very conflicting things here, right?
Right.
So the city's capitalized on taxes, and then we're telling somebody that they can't do it because their regs say so. I agree with our regs, because we made them, and we agreed to them, but we also have something very conflicting. For 30 years, where the regs weren't
Yeah.
necessarily existent.
Yeah.
And I think what our legal counsel advised, to answer Aaron's point and to speak
Yeah.
to that, was that consideration is not in our jurisdiction. Right, so that's nothing that we should take into
Yeah.
account. If there's an issue with that, then the applicant and their legal counsel can take it up with the city in a different way, in a different forum. It shouldn't be part of our consideration set,
I mean, we could,
is what the guidance does.
that was our guidance. I mean, would it be a thing to bring Suzanne to like continue this and bring her in?
I think we need to hear more.
Yeah,
Okay.
could she like brief us on like her, because I trust everything that you're saying, Dominique, but just here, because I feel like that it isn't necessarily within our purview, but if we're making a decision that renders a property unable to be used, I'd just like to hear like more specifically about it, because I personally would find it helpful and like appreciate, the regulation.
Yeah, and then what do you do with 30 years of taxes?
And I think
Again,
the
like,
other,
Yeah, that's
She would
not
say
our
that's not
purview,
our
but I
watch.
think just having.
I hear you.
But I understand why they're frustrated, where there would be, I guess you could make that argument for manifestly unjust at that point, even though it is conflicting,
Yeah.
right? I would be certainly frustrated.
Can I make a comment here? Because,
You address the board if you want to make comment, but
because, her information that was provided in 898.
it was, the ownership was transferred in 98.
Right, now, we've had a covenants there. In the state, you're only allowed to have 2 covenances. As I understand through the legal counsel I've had, each one went for 30 years. So that means there was no subdivision at all. We didn't even know it was done in 1994. If it was, it couldn't have passed then anyhow. And it was their problem anyhow, because to me, they did it wrongly. That covenant's held till this September. So we went to rewrite it again, and we couldn't, to protect the property out there amongst the 7 properties. So whatever they did, I could care less. If they could have subdivided it back then or tried for a permit, that's it. 20,000, by the way, is a cheap date out there for taxes. So that's the way it was.
I think it's irrelevant.
I do.
Right.
But the point of it is, if their intent was to divide and subdivide, and they're carrying a lot, they would have legally not been able to do that anyhow. So that's their issue.
I think we need more legal counsel
Yes, you
on
do.
it. I don't think we should be voting on it personally without.
The couple things, when you're on a board, and I've been on a number of them, is making decisions when there's not enough information.
Yeah.
And you need to get more information in. And obviously where the speed bump, if you will, is basically legal. So either, I'm hoping that Suzanne can show up and then give us some advice, so that maybe we can get over that speed bump and either go one way or another. I'm sympathetic, obviously, to the property owner. And I'm sympathetic to her too. Sometimes.
Or just the piece about the manifestly unjust is what I would just like to be able to. So is it fair if we make a motion to continue it to the December meeting? And if we have specific question that we can provide those for Suzanne to be able to answer, and hopefully someone might be able to, because I just think I get our regulations, it's very clear, but it's, I think, manifestly unjust where I'm tripping up.
Mhm.
And I would just find it helpful to have clarity.
I agree with that. I also, if this had, we're a different board than the boards in the past that have passed these things. And now we have different regulations. We really have to stick with the regulations. I agree we should have our legal counsel come to talk to us though. I mean, if it was the regulations had been in place 50 years ago, nothing would ever be built on Wintershee Creek, and they probably shouldn't have been. They shouldn't have been. Nothing should have been built on that area.
And as it's written right now, it's just not probably gonna happen as it's written unless we have some sort of legal counsel to give us a little more information, I think. Because we have to really, I think you're right. And the management adjust part is very, that's a hard one.
So should we can we just continue it, or do we need to make a formal motion?
I think you need to make a formal
I
motion
would
to
like to
continue.
make a motion to continue 19 Penny Lane's variance request to our December meeting so that we can gather more information about the situation.
And have our legal
Yeah,
counsel
and ask
attend our
legal
meeting.
counsel to attend.
I will second that.
Any other discussion? Probably had enough.
Yeah.
All right. I vote yes.
Marco, yes.
Erin, yes.
Thank you all very much. Very thoughtful discussion.
Deb and John, I have to look up the date. I mean, anything you can provide that would help the board understand in the meantime, as far as like your arguments for manifestly unjust or information,
I'm
I make it
assuming that,
the transparency. Okay.
I'm assuming that you guys have seen everything that we've drafted.
Yes.
I don't know what goes
Yeah.
into your,
Cody shared all the plans.
but we had a very thorough manifest injustice.
I shared that with them.
Okay, all right, just want to make sure.
Exactly.
Other than that, I think look at what you see, so. Thank you. Appreciate the time. Good discussion.
See you later.
We missed that.
It's the regular day.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
This is one of the most difficult ones is presented to us.
So can we, just as a follow-up item, if we have like specific questions, can we pass them on to you?
Yeah, I was
for
gonna
the
say,
day?
I don't know whether we should do it before you voted or after, but I'd love to hear what your
Okay.
line of questioning is, so we can.
Okay, I'll write down what my specific questions are and then.
I think it would be really helpful. I mean, I can present the case to Suzanne, but like if I have the board specific
Yeah, we
questions that
can
they're
send
looking
those-
for,
send
like,
Whatever ones I have around it too.
yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, great.
So Marco, if you have some too, or you can take a look at Aaron's and see if it's,
It's just, we're gonna start getting real money when it comes to this stuff.
Well, I think also it's an opportunity for us to really look at the competition manifest.
That was
So that we have, wiggle room.
Thank you, David.
Whereas
I mean, she made a good point that benefit for just to be negative. It would mean that we can't do anything at all, so, and say that.
we're using the state definition.
No, of course, but I guess what I'm saying is that the way the argument she made was that if you use that, that means that you can't do anything anywhere, ever.
Mm.
And why have a board at that point? I guess you could make that argument, but it's hard here because there's a lot of places you can't build,
Yeah,
or because of regulations locally, you can't do it. But it would certainly be upset as a property owner if I was paying that much money in taxes every year when I was told it could be built up.
yeah, it
So,
sounds like there might be some of the details there too, in terms of like, whether that would be.
and I wonder if like financially, is it unjust that we've taken that tax revenue? Is it unjust financially? And that's a good question to ask legally. Like, I would think personally,
The board doesn't have the ability to, that's not part of our.
Right.
right, but I guess the question would it fall under manifestly unjust because it's a financial burden?
Well, I think those are probably questions we can ask and come up with.
In our
to get
regulations, we
more
say financial
information.
considerations are not a reason.
Okay.
for not to like that. We literally wrote that line in there.
But still, can they sue the city and get their money back?
Well,
That's again, not in our jurisdiction.
Oh, I know
Yeah.
that, but.
And I think what Cody's point was from the assessor's perspective, and I'm not sure that you understood it, was there's a definition to say what is buildable, but then it's on the buyer to check and make sure that
It's buildable.
these things are possible and to what extent. And so, and that's what I think the assessor was saying is on the watch of the buyer, not necessarily.
I mean, if you look at like 180, the big development out on Wingersheek Beach, you know, we talked with that owner the other day and he said he bought it sight unseen for $10 million. And he didn't understand local regulations and didn't understand what makes something buildable in Gloucester. And he went from, potentially thinking he could put 30 homes in to 7,
Maybe 4
maybe 4,
or less.
or maybe not.
Yeah.
So,
It's a very unique place we live.
yeah,
So I think people don't really appreciate local regulation because they think the Title V just across the board is just a rule.
Well, Title V itself says local regulations also prevail.
Right. So, and obviously we're gonna get people that are upset in this today, but our rules are our rules.
Yeah.
But I think there are certain circumstances where we have to be able to, as a board, look at the definition and say, are we being unjust?
Yeah.
Right?
That's
And I
absolutely.
think that if we do look at it as like this is what it is, right? We're automatically gonna say no to everything.
Part of the problem is we have denied some buildings already.
Right. And we have to
So,
be
And
across the board.
if we allow one now, that makes it unjust
It's
for all the other
it's
people.
literally what you believe in terms of like on the basis of new construction, right? We have these other Wingersheek places where they were 2 lots and they made them 1 lot and then they put an auxiliary dwelling. So there's other ways to skin the cat for this applicant potentially. But again, that's not even in our jurisdiction right now to consider either. So we'll definitely get line of questioning. We'll get legal counsel to review the plan in fall and then come back and.
Tony, you know already that I am, I'm curious to know if the system, there's a lot of houses there that are nearby. Have their systems failed?
the systems very, very rarely fail for backups on Wingersheek Beach.
Because it's sand.
So the failed systems we have on Wingersheek Beach are generally because they were installed too deep. And so they're in the groundwater or in the estimated seasonal high groundwater. And so they fail during a Title V inspection. So most of our opportunities to put in advanced treatment come like when somebody wants to rebuild their houses out there and they want to go from a 3 to a 4 bedroom. That's why we have advanced treatment on Wingersheek Beach. If our regulations weren't there, they just keep with a conventional system and they'd almost very rarely have to update them. I mean, the soils are extremely permeable, right? And so, the water runs through them very fast, even if they get loaded with biomat, because it moves so quick that the biomat doesn't have a chance to build up.
So it doesn't really treat the
It doesn't treat the waste. Yeah.
So that doesn't mean that they failed?
No. Nope. Not according to the state. No. So the state doesn't have a setback for a coastal dune. Because they essentially designed the state criteria to hit all of the state, and they didn't necessarily address like the Cape and address areas along the coastline, specifically with coastal dunes. They have some setbacks for coastal banks and things like that push things back. But sand is a really, really poor treatment. And that's why when you look at the Cape and you look at the massive nitrogen problem they have out there, given their geology is different than ours, but if they are in a big sandbox as well, that's similar to Wingersheek Beach, essentially, they just don't get the treatment they need. And so, they're seeing eutrophication of their rivers and their embankments, and they ended up having to sue the state, 5 years ago for the state to redo their regulations so that to address the problem that's out on the Cape. Luckily for Gloucester, really luckily, we started putting advanced treatment systems in 20 years ago. And so we've slowly been updating, and that has made a tremendous difference on our clam flats and on our water quality in our area. So advanced treatment systems do a lot. Still, but they're not necessarily addressing the unknowns. So like one of Dave's, comments when I had a discussion with him was, there's unknowns that we don't know about out of septic systems. There's PFASs, there's the next contaminant of concern that we don't necessarily know we're using in our cooking products or our clothing. But PFASs specifically are endocrine blockers, so they can affect the reproduction of certain species. Whether those be like, clam species and mollusks and things of that nature. And so we didn't necessarily address that in our regulations, but we did address the fact that like we know that this area is sensitive and important.
Which our ordinance says and our conservation commission is
Right.
to adhere to. And, we're really in these regulations backing what the city has already said has to get done to the wetlands protection act.
I mean, if we do approve
Marshall
this
River.
eventually, what does that do to all the ones that we've not approved?
I think that I said this to Dominique. I think that we go through kind of our process and we review. We spend a meeting either on the books or off the books, and we review our cases that we have approved and the cases we haven't approved. And were we happy with the ones we approved? Were we unhappy with the ones we didn't approve? Like, how are we feeling about our regulations so that we're not redoing them every 10 years, but we can just come in and we can redo them every year if we needed to, not in the same process that we just went through, but like kind of simple things that are like, like we're seeing like this, and it doesn't make sense for, applicants to come in and when they have this like really unique scenario where the geology is this and the house is this and they're, a Gloucester lifetime resident, things that like people value as citizens and locals, and they're putting in like this system that's proven to, treat effluent to the most amazing amount. Should we grant variances for that? Should we change our manifestly unjust argument?
I
Should
think it's a
we?
little easier when it's new construction completely,
Yeah,
right? Where there's nothing.
well, this is a case, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. This would be like, okay, well, can't do it.
Yeah.
But like if there's already a dwelling, I think I know we made some choices.
Yeah,
That's difficult in itself, but this is a brand new, nothing there.
yeah,
That's tough.
This is new,
Right.
this is
Like,
new construction.
as it's written, it's like, can't do it.
yeah.
Well, I think our regulations are clear and stuff. I just think based on what they said, it just made me feeling like this is not my area of expertise.
Absolutely.
And having that additional feedback would just be really helpful for me in making sure that like
I think it would also help clarify for them rather than us trying to argue with them.
Yeah.
Right, so. I
Yeah,
think you're right.
case is a good one.
Yeah.
This is a tough one. I knew that right away when I talked to you. This is,
I think you're pretty clear though in your decision or your opinion.
Yeah,
These are alright.
Yeah.
right.
They are.
I stand with Dominic that these are our and I don't mind to put words that these are our regs. If we don't believe in them, let's change them to something we believe in.
But we have to be consistent.
But we have to be consistent, right? And so consistency is key. And so like we made a big leap and bound. Now we see how we sit with that, and then we kind of look at it and see how, like when we have these no's and these yeses, like I think we should bounce them back, maybe in April. So that would be a full year. And I don't want to necessarily change the reg like drastically every year or something like that, but like
tweak them.
this is a big growing pain for the board and for Gloucester, right? The enforcement of this manifestly unjust when it's never been, when it
Has been there all along.
has been there all along, but been enforced inconsistently. So I don't want to say it's never been enforced because I haven't sat on the board or seen 20 years of hearings, right? But I would say it's definitely been enforced inconsistently because there's 8-bedroom homes. I mean, there's a neighbor out there that's an 8-bedroom house.
But that was then.
That was then.
So-
This is now, right? So
With the rising water, the water is gonna keep rising.
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, everyone in Wingershik Peak will be underwater in 80 years, most likely. I mean, if you want to believe that, and I believe that. I mean, it's kind of scary in some ways. So
All those houses are gonna be
I mean, there's some of those houses, there was a house that's on Wingersheep Beach, on Coffin's Beach there, that's farther up. That's on the primary frontal dune, so this is the coastal dune, the secondary dune, so it's back. It lost 60 feet of beach level in one winter last year.
So they're gonna be.
60 feet of beach.
They're gonna go into the water, so.
I mean, this house is, like I said, in the secondary dune at least. It's not in the primary dune, or this lot is in the secondary dune, but it's elevation wise, like, when does it become the primary dune? So, I don't know, they're tough decisions to make.
Anyway.
Anyways,
Yeah.
health gaps.
I just wanted to say for the record, did we almost make it through, to upgrades with no Dave Sargent comments?
Yeah, I mean, well, he did have the one about not redoing the
But that wasn't,
drainage swale, but so.
we're just very excited because I just think you're rocking it, so. If you remember, you all said, Cody, bring all these forward until, even though he's authorized to approve them by law, it's like bring them forward to the board and let's have a review of them, and it's just nice to see,
Oh,
Nice.
that's why I think some of those, now that you've been doing it, it's probably something worth reconsidering if we have to keep doing.
yeah, but our goal is
Right.
Dave Sargent has no comments.
Yeah, both of them with comment,
Yeah.
that's on me.
No, he's very experienced, and so we're almost there.
Yeah, a lot of insight. I don't necessarily agree with everything. But
It's true. All right.
All right, are we ready to move on?
yes.
All right, health director's recap.
So in the last month, what we've been working on heavily in the health department is getting ready for enforcement of rental regulations. As you guys know, you voted for, say, November 30, we are going to start enforcing. So we've been doing a lot of outreach to landlords to let them know that the deadline's there. If you've been watching our social media, it's like 29, 28, 27 countdown to enforcement.
Can we have a little bit of clarification on that? Like, so landlords have to register.
They have to register.
They have to register.
Yes.
Okay.
It's a $30 fee for a building, no matter how many units you have. It used to be $90 per unit, dramatically
Is
less.
that every year?
It's every year,
What did you
but
say it was? Every year, right?
every year, yep.
Right.
Is there a reminder sent out?
There will be a campaign reminder that is sent out, says time to renew.
And it can be done online.
It can be done completely online, yep. One of the things that we're moving right now to do is, typically renewal would be in January. And so instead, we're saying, we started this in April when the city council passed the regs, and we did as well. And we started to, kind of say, now's the time to register. So we're not going to send out the renewal campaign until that year is up. So the new renewal year will be April to April rather than January to January. And so there are people who are worried that they're going to have to pay again in January when they've just paid now. Again, if you own multiple units, this is a cost savings. If you owned multiple units, but you had people in there for a long time, you only had to pay when it turned over. Or there, if you remember, our regulations were very complex. It was like some number of years, or if it was within a certain time period, you had to get inspected every year until such time as you had a long-term tenant. That's all gone now. So it's just $30 every year for you to come in and confirm that you know the law by reading it, signing it, and then that's all that's required. So it's a lot simpler, as you remember. Should be less costly for the majority of the landlords, and again, it's $30, not $90. So if you did come in every year, we're still a third of what the cost was. Been a big learning curve to figure out how to make this system work well. But in any event, so now we have I think 1,200 total registrations, which is significant because it equals many units. And we're trying to do the math. I think is Bree online by any chance? Bree was doing some math to figure out like how close to our estimated 5,000 units that we believe there are. If you remember, that was the estimate. And I think we were up to like 3,500 or something, and we still don't have some of the people that had registered before, some of the multifamilies. So we've done outreach to those groups as well. So this month has been a lot about making sure that all parties know and have the chance to be a few reminders that they have to come in and register. So
I have a question.
Yeah.
You know that the other units that I own burned to the ground about 9 months ago. It finally got demolished this past week.
They finally what?
Demolition was finally done
Oh, wow.
last week.
Is that the one over by the?
So
Real Street?
it's near the Azorian and
Near
Oh,
Ed's
nice.
Mini
that's
Mart.
mine, yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
And,
I'm thinking over in Rocky Neck, I'm like,
Yeah,
where?
it's in where the Shaw's used to be, down the street.
Yeah, I know where that
yeah,
is.
across from Ed's Mini Mart, right?
Yeah, the Dunkin' Donuts is across the street.
Oh, man. I know that is.
So we're working on getting architectural plans. I don't have to pay the $30
No.
until it gets rebuilt.
Why not?
It's just.
Yeah.
What about,
So it's
I'm
like-
just curious, Florida, I don't remember. Does these rental dwellings also include, let's say that it's a two-family home, but it's your actual family living there?
Yeah, no. It's if you're declaring it as income to the IRS, that's really the
Okay, I just
regulation,
wanted
yeah.
to tell you, if anyone's listening. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, it's technically it could be a two-family home, but if it's your own family living there.
That's
is
right.
it- Yeah,
Yeah, that's not considered a
It's
rental.
only if you declare the
If
income.
you declare it as income, then
Okay.
you have a tenant paying you money. And then we have an interesting situation where Gloucester Housing Authority has never registered with the city and never been inspected by the city. And I think the reason for that is because the state inspects their properties. Interestingly, the majority of our complaint cases come from Gloucester Housing, who's incredibly responsive when we call and, come in, but the majority of our cases are coming from Gloucester Housing. So they will be registering now, and they have a question as to whether or not they need to pay for that, for the fee, whether or not they have to pay the fee because they are a state entity. So we have a question into legal on that.
So we don't know the answer yet.
Pardon me?
We don't know the answer yet.
I don't know the answer yet. No, we have not yet heard back from the state or our legal department on the same. So, but they are registering. We'll just have to figure out the fee thing. So that's going to increase the number of units dramatically, right, in terms of how many we estimate to have. So a lot of work going on in there. And we went to an energy fair to help promote the services and this, need to register. And it was pretty small attendance, I heard.
Bree had a great table and Cindy was there too, trying to jab people with stuff. Yeah, I think they got some
Vaccines.
folks, yeah. She had a nice table and we're trying to do some additional outreach and stuff. The process is relatively straightforward. It took a few minutes to go through the first time. But it's not terrible. It's pretty straightforward. And regardless if you have one unit or if you have 10, as long as it's one address, it's $30. So
Yeah.
it's pretty good.
Reasonable,
deal.
yeah. We did that on purpose because the landlords complained about how expensive it was. That was the reason they weren't doing it when we talked to them. So that's housing. And then if we move into food, we you can see Sophia's newsletters. Have you guys been copied on her newsletters? And you see in her last newsletter that she's focusing on, the process that we're going to have to do risk-based assessments. We have fee structures that were approved by you all and then by city council as well. That will be changing the cost of your restaurant depending upon how complex your menu is or what your kitchen setup is like. So there'll be a letter going out to restaurant managers this week or early next week from me talking about what's coming outside of her newsletter. That's going to be talking about the fee changes and the approach we're taking come January, which will be candidly, and I think I told you this at the end of last meeting. Restaurant managers had come in and talked to the mayor about it because they have capital costs. They're concerned about it. So we explained to them why we're doing it. They understood that, but they still have the issue of small businesses not being able to afford some of these capital expenses to get up to code. And so Gabby White, our assistant director and community development, are now meeting to figure out if we can find some grants and some opportunities for local restaurants to offset the cost of capital improvements. Because it's not on the landlord, it's on the operator, right? And so it could be a building that the landlord owns, but the operator is accountable for the kitchen. And for, the margins in the restaurant business can be pretty slim. And so we're really trying to look into whatever we can do to help, our restaurants become compliant and help with the cost structure for all small businesses. So really excited to be working with community development in that and looking into some ideas. We are starting on the regulatory side. I'm doing the regulatory report at the same time because it's just me keeping on talking because nobody else is on. We are going to start our apple pie view of compliance. So we have.
I'm also here if you need anything. Sorry to interrupt.
Hi, Connor.
I'm glad you're here. So Connor and Cody have been working really hard to make sure that they have a good review of how many septic, who has a septic system and are they or are not, they not compliant. And we feel like we have a pretty good view right now. So the letters are going to start to go out to say, we have no record of you managing your septic system. You have to get it. You have to get, up to speed here. You have to have a system check by this date and so as we have most people are, when they know what they have to do, they are doing it. Connor's terrific, dialing out and really engaging with residents and making it happen. But when they don't, we're going to be bringing them before you, right? And starting to kind of make sure that the enforcement happens because it's really critical that we can have our septic systems in good working order, as for all the reasons that Cody just talked about a minute ago. Connor, anything you want to add there?
No, just looking forward to get the ball rolling. We'll start talking to the councilors, either newly elected or retaining, and let them know the plan. We had previously spoken to Councilor Memhard, who will be the first ward that will be getting the letters, and he's privy to the information. So before those go out, we'll make sure to talk to him again, but things are looking good and ready to go.
Good.
It's a really clever idea to make sure, because they'll probably get phone calls from people being very annoyed, so.
Yeah, and
Pretty
the
smart
important thing
tool.
that the councils understand, like the law and what's required,
Yeah.
that they can explain it. We'll give them handouts and stuff and make sure that they've got all the information they need. We're starting in Ward 1 because we've done a lot of research on the Niles Beach stuff earlier. From an administrative standpoint, we are making, Danielle, are you on the line? Okay, so we are making updates to our website to help it be clearer, help people navigate more easily. And some of that work will be some like new visual cues that you see in your deck here, rather than just endless scrolling, trying to make it easier to work. Reminder of the kindness campaign, giving the mugs away. If you know anybody that has done service to the city, we have mugs to give away, and the mayor will say thank you. So really encourage you guys to give us some suggestions. We're moving into, we've also added, by the way, on our website, like what's the word I'm trying to think of, how fast you're going, which is called a speedometer. Thank you. To help people understand where we stand in the threat of disease. So like what's going on with respiratory and the like. So we've been putting those out on social media as well. An example of one we did in Halloween was sort of saying where we track hot, warm, or cold for SARS, for COVID, or for flu. Encouraging people to mask up where possible. We have a lot of masks in the health department, if anybody's interested. And we continue to do social media to help with the housing countdown, to help with septic regs. I think people are getting really tired of seeing septic system social media, but it's having its impact because Connor's getting a lot of people that are already starting to do things the right way. In other news, and Aaron, I'd love it if you could just talk a little bit about it because you're so much closer to it on the heat side of things and the federal cuts. We had a meeting at the mayor's office today, in fact, working across the city offices to think about how we can support and pull together to support our community organizations like Action, who's impacted in the ability to support and provide heat assistance to individuals, and also Open Door with food, because SNAP benefits are really not working right now. There are no SNAP renewals at this point. And so Open Door obviously is already working very hard across these things, but we're also looking at what we can do to drive more money and, whatever we can do to encourage donations to Action and to Open Door. The need is very real. And Erin, can you elaborate on the heat side of things a little bit?
Yeah, so Action administers the Home Energy Assistance Program, which most people know as fuel assistance. So it's a federally funded program. And so right now, due to the government shutdown, there isn't any federal funds coming through for the program. The state of Massachusetts has very limited rollover funds from last year. The program started November 1st, and there's specific criteria that people have to meet to be considered an emergency. So if you meet one of those particular criteria as emergency, we are able to assist you, but the benefit amounts that we're able to assist people with are not very high right now. They're pre-COVID levels of benefit level. So there's for folks with oil, some of them are not able to get the full 100 gallons that most oil companies require through their benefit. So some folks are having a balance due to that, and most likely some people will only be able to help with one drop of oil throughout the season. So if they're getting it now, come December, January, they might not be able to again. So right now, the funds that the state has are what was left over from last year. So the only people being served are emergencies only. Based on the specific criteria, applications are still being processed for the fuel assistance program. And in Gloucester, we have the aggregate electric rate, which is really important. But National Grid recently came out with 4 different tiers of discount for people. For some low income households, they can get just over 70% discount on their bill. So it's really important. People are still applying for that. But there is significant concern, depending on how long the government shutdown lasts, that the rollover funds from last year will be depleted and that there will be no funding for that program. And application demand is up across the state. At Action alone, based on this time last year, we have more than double the application in the door than we did last year. So the need is twice as much, and there's not much left. So I think there's a lot of creative thinking trying to be going on, especially understanding for some of our vulnerable community members, particularly seniors, to ensure that there's something to be able to assist them. But at this point, it's relatively fluid. So.
And that plays forward can become the issue of like, where will people go to be warm, right? And what resources do we have to help people be warm? So it's not a good spot, but it's, as usual, the city's coming together and trying to figure it out, and community organizations are already working so hard around it. But really, the getting money to these 2 organizations is just critical right now.
And Open Doors doing a really phenomenal job. They did an extra distribution on Saturday, and I know on Veterans Day they'll be opening again for anyone that needs food to be able to get an extra distribution. So I know they're putting a lot of social media out. So I know the city shared it and stuff too.
Yeah. Any other questions on that? So on the communicable disease reporting side of things, I think you guys can see that there's 34 cases now of monkeypox in the state. And even though it's less than 2022, it's still here. So the DPH is trying to make everybody aware. Mpox symptoms. Clinicians should be aware of Mpox systems and inquire about sexual and travel history, and consider testing. So, and obviously they have to promptly report. I don't know if you guys have any questions about any of the communicable disease, infectious disease reporting that Cindy has done, but the numbers are fairly light, with the exception of coronavirus, which is still very low in the state at 11. Number of cases in Gloucester. And then Cindy's almost done with her vaccines, her vaccine season, where she's dashing around madly as best she can to get everybody vaccinated as possible. And we're doing diaper drives right now to help new moms get diapers. But other than that, I think I have everything. We have the Public Health Excellence Grant fully signed and rolling in. So we'll be starting, we just posted a position, or we'll be posting a position for a program manager on that front. And then we're working with the town of Manchester on that. So that's taken a while to get up to speed, but now it'll be running, and we are live with RISE grant for opioid abatement. We're with transit and housing and programming, and we have a few more to go. We're reapplying tomorrow to continue that. So that the RISE and opioid abatement dollars are managed by the mayor's office per statute, but we are we're delivering the services on his behalf. Any questions? Just delivered our opioid reporting as well.
You guys have done a really great job of putting that all together, and I think we're going with the punches because I know there's been some unexpected obstacles with it. So
yeah,
you guys have pivoted well.
all the red tape and getting really good at taking a hard right. Yeah. How was that presentation, Aaron? Was that clear?
Yeah, it was really helpful, and I think just the work that you all are doing is so important. And I think the idea of recognizing like they're giving money to like certain nonprofits, but it's money like someone is housing, but everybody can access the pool. And I think the way that you continue to reiterate was really helpful in terms of like the community impact and stuff. So
Yeah, so that everybody will start to work with centers of excellence, right? Rather than trying to build their own center of excellence to get money. Right, so like Aaron's doing transport for action, everybody has a billing code, right? So any community organization can use transport dollars. But Action's managing it. So we just start to have the centers of excellence driving the community fabric rather than what happens a lot is everybody's kind of vying for their own dollars and they create their own silos of services and it's duplicative and, not wasteful, that's not the right word, but in times when dollars are tight, it makes it really difficult to keep the spigot going in your particular organization. So we think it's going to be beneficial long term, but it is new. I'm glad you hear that. I'm glad you hear that echoed. That's good because we were trying to make sure that that's being heard. And also, I know I have your ear. I'm like, you've heard from me a few times, but
Yeah, I think that's helpful and just in terms of how it's being set up of like making that impact. So I've really appreciated it and have heard the same.
excellent. Good to know. All right.
Do you want me to go?
Yeah, we'll see.
Okay.
Yes, you're up.
Is that okay, Greg? I mean, Eric, are you good moving on to Chelsea?
No,
Okay.
Did not get
Chelsea's
the
up.
this time.
That's okay. I'll just, again, as I always do, I'll just highlight a couple things that we have going on. We're a team of 2 right now, David Tucker and I. Lacey Natty had her baby, so she is on maternity leave. So we are a very small team of 2 trying to do
Very
a lot.
busy.
Luckily Lacey put a lot of things in place before she went on leave, so things are rolling. Couple call outs. We're working on the one of our grants is focused on like late elementary school, early middle school. So we're doing some programming in partnership with Cape Ann Art Haven to bring some art programming into the elementary schools. So right now we piloted a program in the spring that went really well. That was like a one-time workshop in each of the 4 elementary schools. Now we're trying to do a 6-week program in each of the elementary schools. So right now we're currently after school at Beeman and Plum Cove elementary schools once a week. And we're hoping to do that again at West Parish and East Betts in the spring. Open to for free to any, it's really appropriate for 4th and 5th graders, older elementary school students, to make art and contribute to a collective art project that will be displayed in their school so that when they come into school every day, they can see a piece of art that they contributed to. And really the goal is to try to increase a sense of community belonging and self-esteem among these students. We have an intern working with us from North Shore Community College that is helping out at those programs. So we're very grateful to have some interns right now when we have low staff. Again, in the spirit of partnership, Gloucester Housing Authority at Riverdale hosted a family night a few weeks ago, which included crafts by Pathways for Children, music from the Plum Cove music teacher, and resource cables for parents. So it was a mix of fun for kids and families. There was food, and then also resource cables for parents. Action was there, the Open Door, the health department, Wellspring, so that parents could learn more about resources available to support them. So that went really well. I would say there was about 50 people in attendance. It was well attended. It was like a beautiful night. So it was great. On the kind of adult side of things, so we serve youth, but we serve youth and all of the people that surround them. So right now we're really working on building the capacity of adults in young people's lives to be able to develop skills to better support their mental health and well-being. So we're hosting a series of 5 separate youth mental health first aid courses being held this month and 1 next month. We did this in May. We had 7 trainings. We trained 70 community members from across the region. We're hoping to do the same this round. There was one that happened today at Rockport Public Library. As Erin said, there were a couple action staff there. We have one coming up on Veterans Day at the Danvers Police Department. One on Sunday, November 16th at the Essex Public Safety Building. And then our last one will be held here in Gloucester at the Cape Ann YMCA on December 3rd. Those trainings are offered at no cost. So any community member who is interested in learning more skills on how to support a young person who may be struggling with a mental health challenge is encouraged to sign up. And then kind of a partner to that. So those trainings are 8 hours. So they're hefty. They're really, they're great trainings. And we acknowledge that not everybody has 8 hours to dedicate to a training like this, but there are a lot of people who are really interested. So in response to that need, we've developed a Trusted Adult North Shore initiative, which is 3 separate workshops kind of aimed at different audiences, and each workshop is 90 minutes. So our first workshop is coming up on November 20th from 6 to 7:30 p.m. at the Cape Ann YMCA here in Gloucester. And that's intended for parents and guardians. So we're going to have a panel of parents, youth. We'll have a social worker who specializes in working with youth and families. And really just community members, with less of a training and more of a conversation about how do we best support our kids. We have a second workshop coming up for more of a general audience. So any adult who works with kids, it could be after school staff, it could be coaches, teachers, anyone. That's happening on December 10th at Landmark Elementary and Middle School. And then our last workshop will be held on January 29th at Hammond Castle here in Gloucester. And that is for employers who either employ young people or who have a lot of youth patrons who visit their business, and how to best support those young people. And again, these are free opportunities. We'll provide food and connection. And we'll have some community partners tabling at each of these events as well to provide resources and information. So we're really excited. Registration is not required for those Trusted Adult North Shore workshops, but it is appreciated. Especially because there are opportunities to request any accommodations that may be needed. So if you need childcare, if you need translation services, if you need, there was another one. I don't know, any kind of accommodation, we ask those questions in the registration form. So it's an opportunity to make sure. Yes, have sign language available if needed. These will be held in person, but there will be a streaming option as well. So we're partnering with BevCam and 1623 Studios for that. And then lastly, I'll say one more thing and I'll stop. In the spirit of what Dominique was discussing on empowering centers of excellence in our community to really help drive dollars to the experts in our field. We, as the Gloucester Health Department, as the lead community for our regional youth prevention network, we're applying for a grant through the Department of Mental Health. Aaron knows, showed you about it. It's the Office of Behavioral Health Prevention and Promotion. We're applying for a grant to continue a lot of this mental health first aid work and Trusted Adult North Shore work we've been doing, to expand upon that as well. So to work with new partners to ensure that we're really building the capacity of adults who work with youth, and then also providing some peer-to-peer support as well. So we're working, we've met with Pathways for Children, we've met with the YMCA with the North Shore, spoken with Children's Right and Family Services, Action Inc., Gloucester Public Schools, the athletic director of the Gloucester Public Schools, to ensure that any gaps in mental health promotion, so it's not a treatment grant, but it's mental health prevention and promotion, that we're really addressing the needs and concerns of this community. So we're working on that. It's highly competitive, very competitive, but we're putting our hat in the ring, and it's due on November 21st. So
I have 2 questions. Do you have any psychiatric backup, social workers or somebody else, once you've done some of these things, do you have backup to move them along to therapy?
definitely, yeah. So for the Trusted Adult North Shore initiative, we have a clinician as we're going to have a clinician as one of the panelists on every panel, so that she's not there to provide individualized advice, but really to make sure that she can provide general psychoeducation around mental health issues, and will ensure that every person who attends these workshops walks away with a resource card that has information about where to access mental health support. The mental health first aid model it's owned by the National Council for Mental Wellbeing. So it's an evidence-based model that's international in scope. And they're really very strong on that. This model is not teaching adults how to provide mental health care. It's about teaching adults how to recognize the signs of a young person who may need treatment and how to help them access that treatment. So everybody who attends the training again walks away with a resource guide on how and where to access mental health services locally. So we tailor that resource guide to be local. So that's a great, I appreciate that. That's
And Eric, what we are doing also just to, try and, look into, access to mental health services in general is we're holding a focus group and talking to clinicians about what does it take to build a volunteer corps? What are the dynamics of what could be possible within our community to be able to see if there's an opportunity for us to, support such a thing, right? So that we can speed up access to mental health care services where needed.
Okay, my other question is, are these grants state or federal funded?
State, not fair. The one that we're applying for is a state and it's not coming from federal funding. So that's very clearly laid out in the RFA.
It's good.
And it's there's some possible longevity in the Department of Mental Health grant. So it's the initial grant period is 17 months. It's really kind of it's trying to align with the state fiscal year. So the first grant amount will be for a 17-month period with the opportunity for 8 additional years beyond that. So there is longevity in the grant. But yeah, not federal.
Yes, thank
Which
you.
is great.
That would be concerning.
We do, I will say we currently have a federal grant under the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, our STOP Act grant, which is for youth alcohol use prevention in Gloucester specifically. And we were awarded year 2 of a grant. It's a 4-year grant, and we were awarded year 2. So I think right now accessing the funds is a little bit challenging, but it's a reimbursement grant anyway, so it's just going to take longer for the city to be reimbursed for expenses under that grant.
Very good. Okay, thank you.
That's it. That's what I got.
And then finally, we'll be meeting over the course of the next months with our new mayor and transitioning and briefing him on all that we're doing. And we're following the administration's lead on that. So the current mayor's office will reach out to us and get us set up for those conversations. That is it for us.
Concerns in the bureau. I have a comment actually. I don't know if anybody knows about it, but it's a program in many of the school systems called Reach Out and Read. And it's some of schools also in doctor's offices where they can give out books when the kids come in for their
Check up the
physicals. I don't know if we have that here or not.
It's kind of like the first one.
We hear of it, Reach Out and Read.
I've heard of it before. I don't know if it's here in Cape Ann. I do know that Dolly Parton's Imagination Library is.
All the time.
Do you? It's free books.
Yeah, Dolly Parton.
I don't know what it's called. It's Dolly
Amazing.
Parton.
We got them
It's
for a
like
couple.
Imagination Library,
Yeah.
right? Something like that. It's
I get a book all the time.
you get I think per child you get a developmentally appropriate book sent for free each month.
Yes.
And there's no income requirements. Anyone can sign up.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure about Reach Out and Read. I have heard of that program, but I do know Dolly Parton's here in Gloucester. So
She definitely is.
yeah,
Make sure the kids get books.
yeah, I appreciate that. It was a great question. I will look into that though. I'm curious about Reach Out and Read.
But my group had it, and they still do. When I was on my trip to Portugal, there were a lot of physicians on my boat, and one of them was from St. Louis, and he is one of the program directors for Reach Out and Read. If there's any problems in getting books, he gave me all his information so I can
That's
provide
great.
the information to get more books.
That's great.
So
I'm gonna look into that. Oh yeah, yes, of course. Yeah.
No other concerns.
any other concerns? Okay. With that, I move that we adjourn the meeting. All in favor, yes.
Or, yes.
Yeah. That was